Fed up with bailing out Wall Street and ignoring Main Street and the working men and women of this country.
So why is Wall Street, the heart of our capitalist economy, under such attacks from all sides? Chuck Rocha and Gina Loudon are back with me. Good to see you guys. I'm just going to make the point.
Good to be here.
You know, Chuck, if a lawmaker that represented Michigan and represented Detroit said the kinds of things about Michigan and Detroit and the big auto business that some lawmakers say in New York about Wall Street, it would never fly. What makes Wall Street such an easy target when, you know, I could make the same case about a lot of other companies in this country?
I'm a political consultant. I can explain that very easily. So when you talk about Detroit, you think about a Corvette or your old pickup truck if you're raised on a farm like me, and it's just like apple pie in America. Today in America, everybody's frustrated that they don't feel like they have a say in their government, and so it's easy pickings for Democrats or Republicans to go, oh, it's those guys' fault. Don't worry, I'm going to protect you against those guys. The rich boys, they got it all down. I don't think people mind people being rich or being on Wall Street. What they mind is people buying their democracy, and that's why you see the rise of Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, because people are sick and tired of being sick and tired.
I think that's a very good analysis and a very good point. I think that's exactly why we've seen the rise in these two candidates. But, you know, you think about something like TARP, Gina, and the reality is, yeah, no, I know nobody wanted to bail out the banks. I get that. But the banks did pay back the money, and with interest. In other words, the government made money on the financial portion of the TARP program. People like to forget that little fact. It was actually the auto industry that held everything up. And yet, again, easy pickings when it comes to Wall Street.
But I think you have to think of the impact also on the middle class and those that footed the bill in this whole thing initially. And I think that, you know, there's one place where I really have a problem with this, and that is where the Democrats do this class warfare thing and talk about Wall Street. But in fact, the Democrats take more money from Wall Street and K Street than the Republicans do. And so I think it's a little bit disingenuous. And I have to defend one other candidate in this race, and that is somebody, Ted Cruz, who has taken on a lot of the burden of actually taking on Wall Street against many of his colleagues, and it's helped to make him very unpopular with them. So I think there are several candidates in this race who have really stood up to Wall Street in favor of the middle class in ways that I think are really important.
And I'd say the one positive in all this for the Republican Party is that for whatever reason it seems to have or did lose its way over the last decade or so, because it was seen as the party of the elites. And I think Republicans, a lot of Republicans would tell you, you know, the party's anything but that. It's the party of prosperity and belief that if you work hard, there's an opportunity for you and it'll pay off in the end. And that seems to be what Donald Trump is bringing back to the party. Here's this guy who's a billionaire, and yet he's seen as kind of an average Joe. You know, if he could do it, then I could do it too, Gina.
It's interesting because, you know, I love doing anecdotal surveys when I'm just out at a restaurant or whatever, and I especially love asking non-traditional voters, you know, people who wouldn't ordinarily vote Republican, how are they going to vote? And they'll whisper so often they're going to vote for Donald Trump because they know he doesn't need the money to be reelected, and I think that's going to play a big role in this next election. I think you're exactly right about that.
Does he have that crossover appeal? I've made this point before, too. I think a lot of blue-collar Democrats are excited by Trump. I think in a national election, there might be some crossover. Do you think there's any merit to that?
Look, I've been doing this for 24 years. I've never really seen an anomaly like this right now. And I think at a certain time in history, for the first time, we've seen people who self-identify as independents over Democrat or Republican. I think the key to Donald Trump from a professional like me who does politics is, will all the people who are ginned up by his support actually show up to caucus on caucus night or actually show up to vote? If they do, it's going to change the way we look at politics as a whole. And I would give that same advice to Bernie Sanders and the young people who love him. If these people actually show up and vote, it's going to change the way professionals like me actually judge and monitor these races.
So one bit of advice might be get your organization together, right? Make sure that you've got the ground troops out there that are going to help usher these enthusiastic supporters to the voting booths.
It don't matter unless they vote.
Chuck and Gina, good to see you guys. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, everyone.